Hey yo, what's up everybody, this is Steve for POLGAR, but you already know this. Today's guest is an amazing person. I got acquainted with her over couchsurfing, but hey, that's the criteria for talking couch, right? Quickly, could you say a few words about you? Where are you from, what's your name, and how long have you been using couchsurfing for?
My name is Lyazzat and I'm from Kazakhstan, and I've been using couchsurfing starting from July.
This year, right?
Yeah, this
so it's
year.
like a short 3 months, something like that.
3 months, something like that. And my first experience, I was looking for a place in San Rafael where I can stay while I have a training. The training name is Children's Mastery Anat Baniel Method.
Alright, before she's going to talk about this, like I still don't know how to write it down. Nevertheless, she's doing a life-changing work where she helps actually little kids with both mental and physical disabilities. Those kids actually have difficulties not to get into Harvard, not to be a pilot, not to go to Mars, not to decide what car they want to buy, but to breathe. Can you imagine that? Like, you remember from another video when I was talking about privileges, when we take things for granted like water, like food, like television, like electricity, like heating. Well, imagine when breathing becomes a privilege too. So that's the job what she's doing, and now you are studying in the States, right? Mm-hmm. What is that exactly you're studying over there?
We are studying about neuroplasticity. They teach us through the movement to educate kids with disabilities, but it helps not just to kids, it can help to people who have a stroke in 30s and 40s. With this method we teach people through the movement.
So you decided this profession, you were not meant to be this treater, right? So how did you get into that?
As I said, I gave a birth a child with CP, Cerebral Palsy. My child had very severe form of this disease, and after 10 days the doctor didn't make the blood infusion, and he came up to coma, and after that he had a severe brain injury and he couldn't breathe properly. It's some basic function like swallowing, sucking. It wasn't available to him, and we were struggling. He couldn't sleep until he came to 6 years old. So his muscle tight so much that he couldn't even, his neutral position was like always arching backwards with tight muscle on his leg and his hands. And all his spine was like, how to say
arched.
This? And of course, in this position, nobody can sleep. And he had a lot of problem with digestion because everything is...
Because of the contraction.
Contraction, yeah, and it's not in own position.
Right.
I started to work with biomechanical therapy that helps to change his body
Living
structure.
to get better.
He got better. Cerebral palsy, it's a brain injury. And most of the current therapies, they think that that brain injury, it just happens something in the brain, and the brain sends a signal to the muscle to contract or do not to do anything.
You mean like this movement, for example, is created up here, right?
Yeah, when happened the brain injury, not just brain
gets injured.
Yeah,
but
whole organism gets injured. And most of kids with cerebral palsy, they have the inflammation on their own body, and that make a fibrotic the connective tissue.
I understood. I understand the word connected. Okay, so what she's saying, once you get a brain injury, and that's the general concept of being a handicapped, a mental handicap, that your brain gets messed up, right? But this method explains and teaches to understand that it's not only your brain but your whole body system, your whole nerve system, your spinal cords, your muscles, everything is interconnected, therefore everything gets the damage, right?
Right.
Yes. So how many How many trainers do we have today in the world?
1,000.
1,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so how many people we need?
100,000.
Okay, so there's
Even more.
100 times
Yeah.
higher demand than the supply we can have. Could you introduce what's the purpose, why do you do, and what kind of muscles or joints movements you do with the little kids?
The child have to develop itself through the breathing. Expansion of the rib cage. It moves every rib cage and every vertebra. So every time when child is
Taking a breath,
taking a breath. In whole system, it's happened this small micro movement, and this micro movement helps to develop the spine, and child started to grow, and he started
so
to.
Through breathing, you are able to learn how to crawl,
Yeah.
how to roll, how to stand, how to
It's
walk.
first movement that happened in our body when we.
The breathing.
Yeah, breathing. And before the child start to roll, he have to have extended spine that allows him to move.
Yes.
And between each part of movement, child does about from 150 until 1,000 micro movements with everything in his body. And then it's like a puzzle. It's child makes a lot of small movement.
Yeah.
And then it
Comes together.
it comes
as a whole
together
thing,
on the one movement, like a
rolling or standing up.
or if he had problem with breathing, so whole system stopped to work,
Right,
and
right.
because he cannot breathe properly, and everything is stopped to develop,
Right.
and for sure the child will have the problem with developing and movement.
So why did you choose that instead of going to an office, instead of selling insurances, you are going to teach others, you are going to travel around Central Asia and help other disabled kids to improve their biomechanical movements?
Because as a mother of my child, and I felt that I know as we were in different countries trying to help my child, and every time I felt the fail that they cannot help him. We tried a bunch of therapies that didn't change anything with my child, and I know what feel the mothers, and it's actually hope for others and help your child. They think then harder you work with child, then healthier he will.
Yeah, they get better kids.
But it doesn't work with kids, because when harder you work with child, then he came to the therapist and will cry and cry, and he never stopped to cry.
You had a client like this. You had a child in the last days, right? When even though you were just approaching the child from behind, he already felt, or she already felt, that you are a stranger.
By the way, yesterday he didn't cry because
okay.
First day he was afraid of me, and he didn't know me. What am I going to do with him? And yesterday we worked with him. I also was behind of him, and we started to talk, communicate with his mother, and the child just roll and look at me, and she was smiling, and it was amazing.
Do you think that you are able to teach and give this knowledge away so the world can be better and more disabled kids can get help?
Of course, I'm alone. I cannot do for all of kids, to help all of kids, and I'm planning to make something like a course like a training for parents, where we can teach starting from how to feed the child, and what kind of
even feeding is a challenge, right?
Of course, this method, it doesn't hurt child.
Okay.
So
there are methods what hurt
of course, yeah,
and children.
A bunch of therapies, children
based
just
on force.
Based on force, and kids crying all the time.
Today's punchline is even eating, even breathing, or just rolling on the floor becomes a privilege, and we happen to forget what privileges we have. We are healthy, we have problems, everybody suffers on a certain level, but at the end of the way, what really matters is actually appreciation, realizing that life is beautiful, and then being healthy is already just like putting our mind state on such a high level that we gotta appreciate, we gotta be grateful for what we got, even though if it's not wealth, even though it's not family, even though it's not a mortgage, house, car, you name it. But we gotta be grateful for that, because these kids are just dreaming about things what we do on an everyday basis. Speech what I have done with her, probably it's years of practice, years of suffering for most of the kids who are disabled. Thanks for coming here, for sharing your experience. Guys, don't forget, you with a little bit of me are shaping society. Bye.